Welcome to another edition. Hey, peel yourself off the Monday, off the mat Monday edition of the morning briefing. I need to peel myself off the mat here after a series of wins, and also it seems like an insurmountable number of brutal beats that took place over the weekend. Very exciting all the way around. I'm Jeff DeForest. That's Mike Lubie. Lubitz here on NoFilter.net. And it was great college football activity. You had Georgia reestablish itself in a just a pummeling, a clubbing of seals type of win against Kentucky, who was supposed to give them a challenge. People were starting to wonder, and that always happens, doesn't it, Luby? Where you start to have your doubts about a team, so you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take the 16 and a half, and then you take one right on the chin as they explode out of the gates, the Bulldogs there, and start to make you think, yeah, when was the last time they lost? I think that was like 2011. It's unbelievable what's happening there. So they reestablished themselves as one of the heavyweights. So you had a great battle going on between Texas and Oklahoma.
Great game.
The Red River rivalry turned out to be all of that. You had Matthew McConaughey on the pregame show there on ESPN. He's a big Texas fan, and Texas goes down in brutal fashion as Oklahoma and Texas were exchanging blows all throughout the four quarters of that game, only to have the old cliche apply, which is, I think whoever gets the ball last is going to win this game. And
Yep.
it turned out to be Oklahoma. And many of the wise guys kind of liked Oklahoma in that game. So that threw a little bit of turmoil into the teams that follow in behind Georgia in the upper echelon of the rankings. You had the sinking of USC once again as they had to go to double overtime to beat Arizona after being favored by, 20, 25 points in that contest. A lot of exciting action all over the board. But there was one game that came into central focus, and it happened right here, Mike Lubie Lubitz, in our backyard. And I'm thinking, and this comes up a lot. I don't know. Is it always fair to equate stupidity with the large S of one coach's salary? They do this with ball players all the time. So I think it's more than fair to think if you were going to pay $8 million a year on a 10-year deal, $80 million in total,
Oh my
to bring a decision maker onto your college campus. I don't care if this guy's in the philosophy department, if he's on the board of directors, or if he happens to be your head football coach. Would a bonehead decision of this magnitude be enough to make you think twice about just forfeiting whatever amount of money you had to give away? And we're talking about Mario Cristobal and the University of Miami, which they had this game so in the bag, Luby, that I turned it off and started watching another game, thinking
It
that
was
there was
done.
no way that they could lose. I heard you had a similar experience, one of those
Yeah, I was keeping track of the
shockers.
game. I mean, I'm a Florida State fan, so and the Cane fans have been sort of annoying. So I was thrilled to see them struggling versus Georgia Tech, but I figured they'd win, and I just wanted to see how they would do it. And then they either got a first down or got a stop, and we're getting the ball back. And you could do the math, as most people do who've watched football for years, huh? Especially gamblers.
33 seconds on the clock.
It was before then. It was like there was 2 minutes left, and I think they got a first down. And I was like, okay, there's literally nothing they can do to lose this game. The game's over. And USC Arizona was a great game that I think was just starting or just started. So I was like, oh, I was into that game.
I wanted to take a look at Caleb Williams and see,
Exactly.
if he could throw for 17 touchdown passes in that game.
And I stopped watching UM, and then I see the ticker, Georgia Tech scores. I'm like, what? I'm like, how is that mathematically possible?
Yeah, it was like waking up after the miracle at the Meadowlands. I remember that years ago. I was on the radio doing some morning drive show, and this preceded the internet. And when you could get, I don't even know if they had score phone back in those days, where you could call, a 900 number, and they would say, "Unfortunately for you, you degenerate asshole, your team lost last night, even though you thought they won when you went to bed." And it was a Dolphin game against the New York Jets, where the Jets pulled off a miracle against Jay Fiedler, and at the time a sort of a mediocre Dolphin team, and with impossible mathematical permutations. So it was the only way you could see them coming back. So I'm working with a couple of guys in the morning, and I happened to stay up and watch the game because it got to the point after the Jets had scored what appeared to be a token touchdown in the fourth quarter, and I thought, there's an outside chance here. Of course, naturally there was an interest in the point spread. And the two guys I was working with, they had long since gone to bed. This game was taking an eternity to finish. So I came in the next morning, and people aren't on computers back then. And
No.
I said, "Wow, can you believe this, man? The Dolphins ended up losing that game." And they looked at me like, "What an asshole! How could you even suggest that?" And sure enough, that was the case. You would have thought it was the War of the Worlds, Louis, that
I was gonna say.
was Orson Welles, and that the world had come to an end. But this was similar. And Mario Cristobal, the head coach who used to be with Oregon, was lured away for big dollars to the University of Miami. It's supposed to be the salvation. There's a history there. He played there. We knew him when he played there. He was a very humble guy. And, he was criticized at Oregon for 2018. They have a chance to close out a game, take a knee, call Colin Kaepernick if you don't know how to do this. Just take a knee there. You're not going to create any controversy. You get your victory and you walk out of the stadium and everybody's celebrating and talking about how your team is now 5-0.
It's literally called the victory formation. When all you can do is win, you do this formation.
That's it. It's the simplest thing. What are you worried about? That you're going to botch this snap? It's virtually impossible. And even if you do, you're giving the team with about 25 seconds to go a chance to try and go 75 yards, which oddly they did once they got this opportunity, with no timeouts left, and a team that offensively had been snuffed out the entire night, which was the only thing keeping the University of Miami in this particular ballgame. So he did it before in Oregon, and you would think that somebody at this magnitude, this level of coaching, once they had made an egregious, outrageous, getting Joe Pisarcik off the hook type of mistake, and lost a ball game and snatched defeat right from the jaws of victory. If it had happened to you one time, as Sam Retigliano would say, Lubie, one time, you would never make this mistake again. Never, under any circumstances. The Miami Hurricanes have a couple of timeouts, so they have plenty of time to discuss the situation. They have 14 coaches in the press box, 22 coaches on the sidelines. They have analytics guys. They have mathematicians. They have Rene Descartes there on the sideline himself saying, hey, 33 seconds will tick off the clock before the 35-second play. What is it, 35 that they get on the play clock?
40.
Or 40? 40, yeah.
40.
All right.
Yeah, I mean,
40 seconds, and you do the math. You're still 7 seconds ahead of the game, right? Go celebrate out to midfield. You can meet the coach out there before the clock even expires. It's great. So what does he do? He hands the ball off, and Georgia Tech, a lowly competitor in the ACC, knocks and derails the Hurricanes off this lofty perch that they were sitting on, where people were starting to actually believe that they're ready to make a comeback. Social media crucifying Mario Cristobal, and rightfully so, saying, how does this guy have a job still? I think, part of the reason, obviously, is the $80 million, but I think they're still paying off Al Golden for his, lackluster tenure. Everybody in the stadium is screaming, Lubie. There's a fat, drunken guy in section 447. He's been partying and tailgating since 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's now 10 o'clock at night, and he's screaming, take a knee. Yeah, take a knee.
You don't feel like you need to. That's the problem. When the team takes a knee, you're usually walking down the aisle to leave. You wouldn't even notice. Like, no one screams take a knee because you assume the coach knows to take a knee.
Incredible. I mean, especially since this wasn't the first time. No. I know. You're thinking to yourself, hey, didn't you say at some point during one of these morning briefings, I know we're just getting to know each other on nofilter.net, that you are married 3 times? You don't need Judge Judy's gavel to come down to realize, it's a fool calling another fool a fool. But I mean, yeah, I have to say it was costly also. I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't broke at the time of the dissolution of many of these marriages.
Be better off broke.
Anyway, hurricane season, all of a sudden, we had this whole Cinderella thing going here in South Florida, and because of a bonehead move by a guy who you have been critical of, saying that, and I believe this to be true also, and I think there's evidence of it, that Mario Cristobal, one of those guys with a reputation as a great recruiter, word on the street is he's got, nothing but hamburger all Americans coming to the school from now on, and that's it. And starting next year, you're going to see a growth in the talent pool at the University of Miami that we haven't witnessed here since Howard Schnellenberger was saying, "Oh, why on earth would you not take a knee in that situation,
Yeah,
Mario?
exactly.
What the
Exactly.
fuck were you thinking?" Howard had to be just absolutely gleeful from the grave there, as the thing he built in Louisville resulted
Yes.
in a victory over Notre Dame, which was another one of those curious coaching games. I'm not sure what I make. I want to like Marcus Freeman. I really do. I want to think that this guy is a good coach, but does he not seem oddly detached in these post game interviews, win or lose?
Oh, and he
I mean,
sucks on offense. He's ruining Sam Hartman.
yeah,
Like he's not using him at all. They're struggling on offense when they shouldn't. They have a great running back. They are two. They have two great running backs, and they have a quarterback who's been there for 15 years. Like the guy looks like he's my grandfather. Like, why aren't you resting it on him more? I mean, Freeman. That's the thing. Everyone likes Freeman. Okay, he's not getting paid
seems
to
like
be
a
liked.
standout individual, the kind of guy that you would want to send your kid to school to play for. Except for the fact that you might find him suffering an inordinate number of losses. I can wipe my ass with my Sam Hartman Heisman Trophy money after 2 games, Mister DeForest. That was another one of those ones. So where I mean, the guy in the sports book there in Atlantic City, where I made the bet, said, "Hey Lou, you believe this guy? He thinks a guy that plays for Marcus Freeman's going to win a Heisman Trophy at quarterback." Not happening. And that was ugly. But Louisville, did we summarily dismiss them without giving them consideration? They go into that game at 5-0, now 6-0 in the season, and that was very impressive. But clearly, I mean, the bonehead move of the century was Mario Cristobal, and that was on a day where several coaches had blunders, and even of a similar type. The great Nick Saban. Dare we mention this, Luby? What were the odds on this? Was there in-game betting on whether the sideline reporter, who was going to get one gratuitous question with Nick Saban, if he was the winning coach in this game at midfield on network television, was she going to reach into the Jim Gray bag of question approach and say, "Hey, Nick, what the hell were you doing throwing a pass on first down when you could have iced the game by taking a knee 3 consecutive times?" And then he handed the ball off. Now, it didn't end up in the atrocity that happened to Mario Cristobal in the University of Miami, but had that happened, would they even have had the balls to question Nick Saban about making such a disastrous move? Because he did it himself. I mean, handed the ball off a couple of times, could have taken a knee, clock would have expired. Texas A&M was running out. They had to use their timeouts on the first couple of snaps, and the ball game essentially was over. Except throws a pass, runs the ball twice with a handoff out of the shotgun, and then has to have his quarterback scramble around to kill off the final 7 seconds, which essentially at that point you would have had to think that the game was out of reach. But you would have assumed the very same circumstance with that University of Miami game. All right, the pros again. The Miami Dolphins lined it up against the New York Giants. Brian Daboll, wow, coach of the year last year.
I still like the guy. Like I don't know if they were as good as recalled last year, but I think he is. I like him. I think he's a good coach. I think he's stuck with a crappy team. Like,
He really is. But how did this happen so quickly? I know they didn't have Saquon Barkley in the game. The
Barkley's
Dolphins have
everything.
a high wire act on offense this year. They're averaging over 500 yards a game through 5 games. It's unprecedented. They have the highest total of offensive yardage through 5 games of any team in NFL history at this stage of the season, and that includes the Rams back in the day under Mike Martz, right? When you had Kurt Warner chucking a rock to any number of receivers that all ran like a 9,500 yard dash, and they were virtually unstoppable. Eclipses any of the Tom Brady Patriot teams. It's the highest yardage achieved by an offense through 5 games in NFL history, and it only appears like it's going to get padded a little bit next week. As wow, how inept are the Carolina Panthers, Loopy? Would you not consider this somewhat of a weekly annuity? Can you have a weekly annuity? No, this is like an ATM machine betting against the Panthers in every game against the point spread. When are you line makers going to wake up and make it difficult? I mean, that is just like grabbing chump change, like stealing the nerd's lunch money at school back, in the days of PS20 in Brooklyn, New York. But the game, I guess, that everybody had as an eye opener was San Francisco. How much better than Dallas were they last night Lubie. And once again, I mean, Dak Prescott comes under fire as is he somebody that you really think is a championship caliber quarterback? These attacks on social media can be brutal, Lubie. Brutal. What worse than that loss I sustained in the LSU Missouri game, where the only thing that can beat you, and it comes into heading once again, and I hate to keep referencing this and using foul language on the program, but don't fuck me, gods. Please.
It's every week.
Don't fuck me. The only thing that can beat you is somehow LSU picking off a pass near the goal line and running it back in for a touchdown, and boom, you lose to the point spread when you had this thing completely and totally under wraps. It was that kind of weekend, Louis. Brutal mistakes made all across the board by many, many people, and you really have to question what that does to the whole Miami program. As this astounding turnaround looked like it was already maybe starting to make some progress that they were looking to accomplish with Mario Cristobal, and instead he crushes their dreams like a grape, Lubie.
Well, that's the thing is the next two games are North Carolina and Clemson.
Good luck, my friend.
Easy one.
All right, great weekend all the way around. We didn't touch on baseball. We'll get into that a little bit more. It was a shame to see Clayton Kershaw, who I'm a big fan of. And I know he's had his struggles in the postseason. A lifetime, he was 13-12, I believe, going into this game.
Yeah, he sucks
in the postseason. He started out, very suspect as a postseason proposition, then seemed to get it together and had some really good outings, and yet overall has been somewhat so-so. So I'm excited for him. He's starting this opening game, and against the Arizona Diamondbacks, who we had mentioned were 50-1 to win the World Series. So, anybody that jumped in on that now has got a little bit of, doesn't need Viagra to get himself a little bit of a jump start on, just feeling gratified. And sure enough, Kershaw gets shelled. He looked like watching, another one of my favorites, Ali, in that Larry Holmes fight in Las Vegas. When Holmes spent the entire fight turning around and begging the referee, could you stop it, ref? Stop it. He's got Ali. He's just holding him off like with one hand there. And he's asking the ref to please stop the fight before he has to hit him again. And that's what it looked like. Clayton Kershaw, man. Well, what a bummer that was to see that. But Arizona, maybe with a little bit of a Cinderella story. And later on today, they have a chance to go up 2-0 on the Dodgers, and the Phillies are also in a position to take a 2-0 lead on the road against the vaunted Atlanta Braves. So a couple of more big baseball games on tap today, and Rangers 2-up on Baltimore. That happens from time to time, Lubie, where a team has a Cinderella regular season and then just craps out in the playoffs. They still have a chance to come back. It is baseball, but now having to win 3 straight, including 2 on the road against a really heavy-hitting Rangers team. And then you had Minnesota come back against Houston behind our man, Pablo Lopez. Real good ball game by him. And the Stros and the Twins are tied at 1 apiece. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Next edition of the Morning Briefing. Thanks, everybody. Take a knee, Mario. Take a knee. Literally, like the beer vendor is screaming, take a knee, take a knee. Old lady in the parking lot, she's already in her car. She's screaming at the radio as she listens to the final moment. Take a knee, take a knee. $8 million a year for a decision maker, Lubie, and that's what you get. Unbelievable. All right, we'll see you next time on the next edition of the Morning Briefing. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest here on NoFilter.net.